Please take your seats quickly, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim and Chris. On today's French Open Round 1 catch-up.
Rafael Nadal loses in his possible last French Open.
Naomi Osaka sets up a second-round date with Swiatek.
And Djokovic opens his title defence with a night session win.
Chris, today is the 28th of May and we are here to catch up on round 1 of the French Open at Tennis Weekly HQ. Rain, roofs and Rafa has been the story of round 1 as the weather has played a stop-start role on the first 3 days in Paris. It has still been every bit dramatic and a little bit emotional, with Rafael Nadal bowing out in what may well prove to be his final French Open to Sasha Zverev. Elsewhere, it was a much welcome return to the court for Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner, while Swiatek, Sabalenka and Rybakina picked up easy wins to get their Paris campaigns up and running. Chris, it feels like returns and retirements, or at least possible retirements, has been the theme for round 1.
Can we ever be sure if anyone's retired these days, Joel?
I feel like tennis players are just redefining what retirement actually is.
I feel they're taking it as like a light suggestion rather than a confirmation. We don't ever know, do we? We just have to guess.
We had Alize Cornet today, and that was a send-off. That was a retirement. There was a ceremony, and she made comments in relation to that. However, Rafa didn't want the send-off. He didn't want the retirement speech. And then we sort of got Andy Murray, I feel like, just basically in between.
We really don't know what's going on, do we? We're 50-50. We need Kim to be the deciding voice as to whether she thinks Rafa will return or not. I'll make sure to ask her in Paris. But Alize Cornet definitely retired. Jeremy Chardy definitely retired a while ago, but he was still having a retirement ceremony. Murray, Nadal, confirmation. Unlikely to return, but could return.
I mean, there's lots and lots to unpack over the last 3 days with a Sunday start. And actually, you're talking to us from Paris. You have landed. You have joined us from your Airbnb. I'm still confused because you were keeping tabs on the Sloane Stephens score whilst in the air. Technology, wow.
I actually booked a flight for that exact reason, so that I was able to have plain Wi-Fi, so I could see just how disappointed I will be with the Sloane result, unfortunately. So
Chris, the result. I don't really want to dwell on it because I know how much of a Sloane Stephens fan you are. But was the flight time from Copenhagen to Paris longer than how long Sloane Stephens spent on court against Putintseva earlier? I
thought I might be able to land and watch some of it. And it was long finished by the time that I landed. So I'm very, very heartbroken at the moment. But I'm going to have to say something must be going on. And maybe it's because Sloane started her clay season so much earlier. Maybe something's she's been away from home a long time. I'm trying to think what the reason might be. But I do hope everything's okay because it doesn't seem like everything's okay on the court right now.
No, because she's had she's got a great record at the French Open, a consistent record as well, and she started the clay swing with a title. So it felt very, 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 very confusing. I'm not sure what's going on there, but we can talk about that in a bit. But I mean, there are lots to unpack on day 1, and because of the rain, there's still matches going on. I've got one eye at the moment on Katie Boulter versus Paula Badosa. Now, I'm sort of nervous about this one because I feel like Katie Boulter had the opportunities to get this done in 2 sets. However, we've gone 3, so I'm keeping tabs on that. But let's start with the night session match on Phillipe Chatrier. Novak Djokovic versus Hugues Herbert. Djokovic won in 3 sets, and it was a bit of a battle. Quite a tight 3-set affair. It was 6-4, 7-6, 6-4 to Djokovic. This is quite interesting, I think, Chris, given the context of Djokovic and round 1, because I feel like this is like the lowest expectations I have ever had of Novak Djokovic at a Grand Slam in a long, long time, possibly even ever. So what did you make of this match and his performance, given, as I say, all the troubles that he's having with his form over this season so far?
I think it's hard to know. I mean, it really is an unknown quantity when it comes to Djokovic. But in terms of the match that we've seen, it was definitely better on serve, and it was definitely better on return, I have to say. So I think if you look at the base numbers of the match, it's better. If you look at where he's been and where his last match was, I mean, that was very topsy-turvy when he went out in the semi-finals of Geneva. So whatever way you look at it, obviously Pierre Hughes-Herbert is not necessarily in the peak form of his career. He's very much on the challenger circuit and at times below the challenger circuit at the moment. Positives are Djokovic faced one break point. He did actually lose that break point, but that's a much better serving display. And you have to think, again, we've talked about this, it's job done. Job done is all you can hope for when it comes to opening round of slams, and he got the job done. But, I mean, I wasn't hugely impressed, I have to say. But, again, a French player in Phillipe Chatrier in a night session match is always going to be a little bit trickier than a day session match against a non-French favourite.
And just before we move on, it was interesting him talking about Pandora's box and the fact that, he didn't want to open Pandora's box and talk about things and talk about the reasons why he thinks his form is the way it is. Do you think that's kind of like the right approach? And if we were to look into Pandora's box, what do you think is going on there? I mean, John McEnroe earlier on commentary talked about things potentially being distractions to his game and having an adverse impact on his performance. But what do you think is in Pandora's box that Novak Djokovic doesn't want to open?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. I haven't really thought about that as to, I mean, maybe at some point.
It sounds like you don't want to open Pandora's box.
I honestly don't, because if I do say anything, it might be quite controversial in terms of, I mean, there has been talk about whether this is something, we've seen the sheikhs came back, we've seen some medical sides of things occurring. In Geneva, he was shaking on court again, and you have to think that maybe there is something slightly untoward going on. Or also, I mean, you can't play tennis like you're in your early 20s into your late 30s. That's not humanly possible. So I think maybe it's just a reminder that in Pandora's box, it opens up and you find out he is human after all.
Definitely. I think we've all found that with some of the legends of the game already at the French Open. I think that particularly about Andy Murray and the style he is known for. I think Novak Djokovic is known for a similar style. And I think about whether that style is the one that erodes the quickest as you get older. And we see other players who have maybe more contained styles and more durable styles. And as a result, they are able to play later on into their career. I mean, Richard Gasquet is into the second round. Stan Wawrinka is also, like 39, pushing 40, also playing some great tennis. So, yeah, it's quite interesting you raise that. I mean, one player who will not be playing tennis anymore is Alize Cornet, who was probably, one of the highlights of the day session on day 3. And that was because this was her final match against Qin Wen Zheng. Zheng won it. It was a bit of a formality, to be honest. 6-2, 6-1. It opened Phillipe Chatrier. Just a few words on Alize Cornet and her career. I mean, let's put this result aside and just kind of look at her legacy to tennis, her legacy to the WTA Tour. I mean, where do you start with Alize Cornet?
Well, I mean, firstly, she's such a fighter on the court. She's very, very good competitor. I think she's also known for her dramatics on the court, which I think have definitely livened up many matches over the years. But you know what? She's beaten Serena Williams in some very big tournaments. And I think that's probably one of my overriding memories when she took out Serena. I think it was in Wimbledon. And she actually has a couple of wins over Serena, and I think even over potentially Venus at Slam. So I think she's one of those players who, although maybe she never hit top 10, she does have a very big status in the game because she's very dangerous. She's got those big results and her longevity. I mean, Joel, I think we're looking at this, and how many slams has she played consecutively?
I know. I mean, she holds the record for it. 69 consecutive Grand Slam appearances.
So how long is 69 slams? That must be like early 2000s.
Australian Open 2007 to Roland Garros in 2024.
That is incredible. Incredible
achievement. And I was going to say, when I think about and look back on Cornet's career, it's her longevity and that consistency, to play at the top level that is just so impressive. To be in Grand Slam main draws for that long is so good. And to be competitive as well, because, her best singles result at Grand Slam was quite recent, relatively.
2022, Australian Open. I mean,
she beat Simona Halep, didn't she? I remember on the road to to that quarterfinal.
I mean, wasn't that the longest it's taken someone to make a quarterfinal in history or something like that I saw? And it was, I mean, even in 2022, she made quarterfinal, third round, fourth round, third round. And considering that was her first quarterfinal, I think that is very impressive. And you know what? I think it's a very nice time to go out at the French. And I'm glad that she got another match on Chatrier, because she is a great fun player to watch. And I mean, she really does compete as hard as you can. And again, we love the drama. We've seen her play many Billie Jean King Cup matches.
I know.
All sorts of injuries, all sorts of limps, and then she wins the match. But she is an icon.
She is definitely. I mean, looking elsewhere on the outside courts and all around Roland Garros, I mean, I want to quickly talk about the Brits, because it's not been a happy hunting ground the last few days for all the Brits. I mean, Dan Evans today against Holger Rune crashed out 6-4, 6-4, 6-4. As I said, Katie Boulter is on at the moment in a third set 4-all against Paula Badosa. I mean, let's put Katie Boulter aside. How would you assess the Brits' performances in Paris? And despite all the defeats you've seen, should we be worried going into the grass court season, or was this just a case of they just came up against better competitors on their day?
I mean, to be honest, I'm just very much pleased that the rest of them turned up, because Raducanu didn't even bother coming to Paris. And I am very disappointed by that, because I don't particularly enjoy watching Emma on social media hitting brilliantly on grass courts. It doesn't make any sense to me. And it does lead me to the only conclusion is she didn't fancy playing qualifiers that we talked about. So I'm pleased that the Brits are out there. They're grinding it out. Clay's never been many Brits' favourite surface at all. So we don't tend to have great runs at the French. Fingers crossed, because right now Katie Boulter and Paula Badosa are obviously very much in a tight match. It's 4-all in the third. So anything can happen. And do you think there's a chance? I'm not sure we'll still be recording at the time, but do you think there will be a chance that Katie Boulter will get this win? Because this could go on for hours.
I know. I really hope so. I think it's the last match going in the ladies singles draw in round one. I really do hope so. She's playing some great tennis. I don't think she's ever had a main draw victory, a tour victory, I think, on the clay. So this is real kind of bolt from the blue. I was not expecting
a bolt from the blue for Boulter.
Oh, very, very good. I was also thinking there's a matchup going on here between the power couples of tennis. I'm assuming Stefanos Tsitsipas and Alex de Minaur are maybe courtside watching this, as I also have an eye on it as well. But
which court are they on, Joel? This could be quite the star power.
Oh, I'm not sure. It's one of the outside courts.
Court 9. Well, get yourself to court 9 for some star spotting.
But yeah, just generally though, not great from the Brits. I mean. Yeah, I mean, I will say though, Dan Evans today, I watched a bit of his match against Holger Rune, and I thought he played well. It's just Rune has an incredible record at the French Open. He's now 8-0 at the French Open before the quarterfinal stage. So yeah, that could be a good omen for him kind of going forward. I mean, elsewhere, as I say, we spoke about Sloane Stephens defeated
Don't bring it up again.
Okay, sorry. I'm just going to say it and we're going to move on. Defeated by Yulia Putintseva 6-1, 6-2 in 55 minutes. I mean, other players who have done well previously in the French Open and not doing particularly well, I'll bring this up just for the sake of balance. Podoroska lost 6-1, 6-love to Victoria Azarenka. I watched some of the highlights of this. I'm not sure. It almost was like, how did Podoroska do so well at the French Open in that year? And now it's just like...
There's always one, isn't there? There's always one every slam. I mean, that's a shocking result. But Kerber as well. I mean, Joel, you were singing her praises in Rome as the only player that could test Iga.
Well, I know. And I get that clay is probably Kerber's weakest surface. But, I mean, Arantxa Rus, really? I mean, you look at her Grand Slam record, it's just a sea of like round ones, basically. So I think Kerber will, regardless of how she was feeling on the court, I think she'll be disappointed with that result. I mean, just quickly rounding up on some other action. I mean, David Goffin came through against the Lyon champion Pericard, who's a big French prospect. That was pretty tasty. Goffin came through in 5. he incited the French fans at the end and got rightfully booed for it. But hey, I'm here for the veteran here. I think a lot of people, there's a lot of focus on all the other kind of sort of aging players at the moment. No one really talks, I think, about David Goffin, but he's into round 2. He's got Zverev next, so good on him. And we also have Alejandro Davidovich-Fokina winning through. Now, quite interestingly about that, he's going to face Casper Ruud in round 2. And their head-to-head is 2-2 at the moment. And Chris, I don't know if you remember, but Fokina beat Ruud at Roland Garros in 2021. So that could be quite an interesting one.
Having said that,
Ruud's service percentage today was off the charts. I watched a lot of his match. He was serving impeccably.
I mean, that is going to be interesting. And I think having a test this early, I mean, the numbers on Casper's serve, 89% of first serve, and he actually won more behind his second. He won 88%. Well, that's probably because he got so many first serves in. The second serves, and he probably hit 4 and made, well, that's the numbers don't say that. He probably hit 5 and made 4. But that's very impressive. Only faced 1 break point. So I do think that Casper's a bit too rock solid, if I'm honest. And I think that Fokina, even if he was up, I'm not sure he'd be able to put that one away, because we do know he has he's got some demons, does he? ADF, he does.
He's always gonna give you a chance. And yeah, Casper was looking very, very good today. We'll just brush what happened in Madrid and Rome aside, because I'm not even sure he knows really what happened there. But you know, he's got a couple of titles on the clay swings so far. So yeah, he is in good form. I mean, just quickly, Chris, before we go to a break, the day 4 schedule is out. And, I mean, Chatrier is stacked. I mean, we've got Kenin Garcia opening, then Alcaraz de Jong, Swiatek-Osaka in the day session. And then in the evening session, we've got Richard Gasquet versus Jannik Sinner. Now, I thought this was interesting because, you know, last year we spoke about, is there going to be a women's match on the evening session? And we just sort of asked that like every episode, and the answer was pretty much a flat no. I thought maybe if there was a day where a women's match could headline and had proper star power, it could have been Swiatek-Osaka. However, it's in the day session.
I think the Iga always requests day. I think that's the reason.
Oh,
so
do you
I do
think that is?
that,
okay.
I think I heard that last year, and I'm pretty sure that's true.
Interesting.
So I would say that maybe before I slam Mauresmo on that one, because I do love to slam Emily Mauresmo for some of the decisions that she's made previously and some of the comments she's made about women's tennis. I think this one probably does come down to preference. And I think if you were Osaka, would you want that to be an evening match either? Probably you would quite like an evening match against her with the big serve. Yeah, so maybe Iga
heavy
gets
atmosphere under the roof. I think that would favour Osaka potentially.
It could indeed. The conditions without the wind could also make a difference. So, I think Sinner Gasquet, if you had that with a French player playing against Jannik Sinner, I mean, Richard Gasquet so loved, it's going to be tough to get that anywhere else. But I have a ticket for Susan Longlong for tomorrow. I might be trying to see if I can get myself onto Chatrier, because I saw the lineup, Joel, and I'm thinking, oof.
I'm glad you got a ticket for Longland, because I think the weather also tomorrow is not
really bad.
Yeah,
yes.
Not particularly great. So
Thank
I'm glad
goodness for 2 roofs.
Yes, I mean the organisers must be thinking that right now, because it's pretty much been a borderline miracle that they've got through pretty much all of round 1 all on time, despite the inclement weather that has been consistent over the last 3 days.
It's been genuinely terrible, and I've had friends who are here and people that I will be seeing, and they told me it's not shorts weather, and it's a 3-layer sort of weather. So t-shirt, sweatshirt, waterproof. So that's not what I had in mind when last year it was just the only linen and maybe your biggest sun hat. So wish me luck, Joel.
Yes, well, we shall see. Very, very excited to hear what you get up to in Roland Garros. Kim is also there, so I'm excited to hear what both sides of the story.
I need to find her. She's somewhere in Paris.
You need to find her first. Yes, exactly. We're going to take a quick break now, but do join us in the second half, where we will be looking back on day 1 and day 2 at Roland Garros, including Rafael Nadal leaving the competition at the hands of Sasha Zverev in possibly his last ever French Open. So do not go anywhere.
Get ready for the Boodles. The ultimate pre-Wimbledon tennis exhibition is returning to Stoke Park from the 25th to the 29th of June.
and we are offering one lucky Tennis Weekly listener the chance to win a pair of stadium tickets to join us at the Country Estate for a day of world-class tennis in an English garden party setting.
Where you can sip champagne, dine in style, and mingle with your favourite tennis stars.
The Boodles is located just 35 minutes from central London, and every seat in the stadium is no more than 10 metres from the court, giving every guest the ultimate fan experience on one of the UK's finest grass courts.
Tickets start from £105 and attendance is strictly limited to 2,000 per day, so booking early is advised to avoid disappointment. To book, visit www.theboodles.com. That's www.theboodles.com.
And for your chance to win a pair of stadium tickets, all you have to do is follow us on social media at Tennis Weekly Pod, like our competition post, and tag a friend that you would like to bring with you.
Maximum 2 entries per person, 1 per social channel, and the competition closes on Saturday, the 1st of June at midnight. Winners will be announced on our Round 4 French Open catch-up on Monday, the 3rd of June, so listen in to find out if you're our winner.
And we do have an update for you on the Boodles, because we can announce this year at the Boodles 2024, the first 2 players to be announced are...
returning favourite Stefanos Tsitsipas and Hubert Hurkacz will be making his appearance there. Yes,
very
exciting indeed.
Does that mean Stefanos Tsitsipas and Paula Badosa?
I'm hoping
Tsitsidosa will be there?
I'm hoping, because when they broke up, I thought I'm never going to get that exclusive at the Boodles. But now, she was there last year. Maybe they'll sit down with us and talk us. Well, maybe we can help them, guide them through this turbulent time in their relationship, Joel.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, also Hubert Hurkacz. I mean, the big question there is in my head anyway, of course, even if it's an exhibition event, are we going to get a Hubert Hurkacz tiebreak? I mean, it just feels like it has to happen. I won't feel like I would have got my money's worth without a Hubert Hurkacz tiebreak.
I do think that's true. And I think, you know, the exhibitions on the grass, it's almost like contractually they have to go to the tiebreak. I think we saw Diego Schwartzman and
Yes.
Felix Auger-Aliassime almost like split the sets before they went to the tiebreak. So whatever happens, there will be tiebreaks.
I hope so. Well, I'm very much looking forward to that. And yeah, it was a very good win today for Stefanos Tsitsipas. But let's be honest, all eyes on day 2 were on Phillipe Chatrier for Rafael Nadal versus Sasha Zverev. A match that was audibly gasped at when it was made in the draw ceremony, and is probably, I mean, one of the biggest round 1 matches at a Grand Slam in a long, long time. Lots of drama, lots of backstory to it, particularly around Rafael Nadal, who we just don't know at the moment. Was this his last French Open? Was it not? But we do know that he has been knocked out of this year's French Open. Sasha Zverev came through in straight sets, 6-3, 7-6, 6-3. I mean, Chris, just from, first of all, a match perspective, what were your views kind of watching this live, taking the emotion out of it, of the occasion? Rafa's level, Sasha's level, what did you make of it?
Well, I have to say, that first set, I was very concerned, and I did think maybe it wouldn't be the contest that it did become. We did have a very lively second set, a very spirited fight back from Nadal. But for me, personally, it wasn't the heights of level that we could have hoped for, but it was a contest, and I think some people were concerned that maybe it wouldn't be, that it would just be kind of that Zverev would wipe the floor with Rafa. Obviously, you can never count Rafa out, but he did make it very clear he didn't think he would be a contender, and he didn't think his level was at that point yet. So I think from the tennis perspective, a lot of break points missed from both. That's right, typical from Zverev. So it wasn't the most clean match I've ever seen, but at the same time, I do just think Nadal had chances. He really did.
Yeah, I mean, that second set particularly, it did feel like it took a while for Nadal to get going, and I think that's understandable given how little time he's been on the court of late. But yeah, in that second set, I mean, he broke. He was serving for the set, and at that moment, I was sort of thinking the tide was turning, momentum's going to Rafa's way.
I was thinking, can he do it?
Yeah, and with Zverev as well, you sort of think mentally he's not been the strongest mentally on the tour, in recent years. When he's gone behind in matches, I never really think about him. He's always in this. He could make a comeback. But, what I was actually impressed by in this match by Zverev was in those big moments when it did look like the pressure was being put on him, he actually looked pretty unfazed by it.
He did, and I think what's quite interesting is that the times when he was down a break, when he was had to break back to level it out in the second set, he broke to love, and then he went on, held, put some pressure on Nadal's serve, and he went down a break at the start of that third set as well, and very, very unflappable in those moments. So he played solid tennis. I think he knew that he didn't have to play his absolute best level to get the win today. I think it was more about, not giving Nadal the opportunity to play himself into this, and I think making sure he didn't drop that second set was really important for that. It was obviously a challenge in terms of the emotional side, if we can talk about that now, Joel, for both players, I'm sure, in terms of very much Nadal being the favourite, Zverev obviously not the most popular for obvious reasons, but also the occasion. Djokovic was there, Iga was there, everyone was there. This was, can he do it? Is this the farewell? We don't know. And so in those sorts of circumstances, it does affect your game, and often it either goes one of two ways. It will be the best match you've ever seen, or it might just be an okay match but with a very big build up.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting to hear from Rafa afterwards to say, for me, it's difficult to say what will happen in the future. It's a big percentage that I won't be back at Roland Garros, but I can't say 100%. I enjoy playing here. I like travelling with the family, and my body is feeling a little bit better than it did 2 months ago. So I'm reading that, and I'm thinking, actually, I'm a little bit more optimistic, about Rafa, because, he said these things. He told Amelie Mauresmo as well he didn't want the big send-off. He didn't want the big ceremony that, for example, I think we saw in Madrid. What are you thinking is the future for Rafa? He's lost round one here. I thought his level was pretty decent, but he's got the Olympics coming up. There's a grass court season as well. Where do you think he goes from here?
I think it's a very interesting question, because at the start of the year, we all thought this was his final year, but we all thought he was going into the year fit. And he had a big setback physically, so he wasn't able to actually get the run in that he would want for a final send-off at the French. So I do understand in this case the unfinished business he'll feel, because he wasn't able to get back to match fitness the way he wanted to. He wasn't able to go on the run in Australia he might have wanted to as well. And so it does make me think there could be a case for him coming back, because he is improving. You can see that in his game. You can see it in the shots he's going for. The movement is definitely improving as well. So the way that it's panned out, it does make me think that potentially this might not be the last time we see him at the French, but in case it was, everyone was there. And I do think you can't know, at this age and with this sort of potential physical ailments that might come along the road, you don't know what's going to happen. So you have to make the most of all these moments. But at the same time, I can't believe Amelie Mauresmo listened, because people have been saying, schedule a women's match and a night match, and she doesn't listen there. And whenever you see these sort of big fanfares that happen, I'm not sure that Serena Williams or Andy Murray were asking for the big send-off, and they still got it. So it's impressive self-restraint from the French Tennis Federation there, because Madrid had zero chill.
Well, it's quite interesting you brought that up, because I think the Rafa's camp, they asked for this match specifically to be during the day session, because they felt like that would be of an advantage to Nadal. But hey ho, there's been rain today. There's been rain across, to be honest, all of round one, across the first 3 days at the French Open. Did you think having the roof closed, did it almost kind of negate from it being in a day session, and it actually put more of an advantage to Zverev?
Being under the roof definitely is an advantage for Zverev. There's no kind of two ways about it. But what I was very impressed by, Nadal did return very well. I think we saw in the final of Rome that Zverev was almost untouchable on serve. He did have great numbers again at 78% of first serves, but he only won 71% behind it and 56% on the second serve. So Nadal was making inroads there. So I think in many ways he still did manage to sort of play the game that he would want. But when it is a game of such small margins, who knows if it was outside on a warm day, what would have happened. But I do think the best of five format did help this match get going, because, I mean, it could have been the match that never really had those moments in it.
Yeah, definitely. And, he will be back in Paris for the Olympics because he will get entry there given his past record, at the Olympic Games as a former champion. What do you think he does in terms of the middle bit, the grass court season? Because that would effectively mean going from clay to grass, back to clay, and it's not been a happy hunting ground really of late for Rafa to go to Wimbledon and the grass court season. What do you think is kind of going through his mind in relation to that, and thinking about the Olympics and making sure he's in tip-top shape for that? Do you feel like Wimbledon just sort of gets in the way of that, or do you think there's a bit of sentimentality there in terms of, if this is going to be my farewell run, I want to make all the stops along the way?
It's a bit different from the Danielle Collins sort of farewell run where you're in form and you know that you're fit enough to play exactly.
Play as much as possible. Yeah.
I mean, if there's an ITF
it's tactical
25,
to the end, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So I think if Nadal does think he's going to play another season, then potentially I can see why you might skip Wimbledon and focus on getting the clay game where you want it, because the Olympics is such a big deal for him. Obviously, a former winner. It's a very big deal for the Spanish nation as well. So I do understand the logic there. For Kim's sake, I really hope he does play on grass because she really wants to see him. And Kim's been very quiet today, so I was a bit scared to reach out to see how she's doing. Have you heard from her, Joel?
I haven't, and I don't want to break the news if Rafa does decide to skip the grass court season. I don't want to break that news to Kim.
No, neither of us do. But I do. I would like to see him on the grass. I think match practice can help. But then if you flip it the other way, has playing on clay ever helped Andy Murray going into Wimbledon? Probably not. So
yeah,
I would probably stick to the clay if he really thought he could be fit.
And just talking about Rafa, if it is his last French Open, what do you think is the legacy that he leaves? Leaves to the tournament, leaves to Phillipe Chatrier, the court. Because I've in the post match I was reading some people talking about renaming Phillipe Chatrier as court Rafael Nadal. I mean, where do you see his legacy in relation to the French Open?
I mean, I've literally just got goosebumps thinking about that because 14 is a record that I just don't think will ever be broken, and I just think he's so well loved and so well liked and such a class act, and he leaves everything on the court. His passion for the game and his clay court game perfectly demonstrates all aspects of what he can do and how he competes. And I mean, the numbers don't lie. This was just his 4th defeat ever at the French Open. He's won it 14 times and he's made an awful lot of fans. And I think ultimately it's probably the ultimate legacy at any slam that we're going to see. I really do think it will be very tough for anyone to emulate this. And I think on clay it's even harder to do than at most of the other slams because of the nature of the physicality behind it and all the ups and downs he's had throughout his career. To come back, the 2022 title, I think it's unbelievable. And I mean, I don't want to think about it as though it's the last one, so I didn't watch it with that perspective. I watched it from the perspective of the spectacle. But Joel, I mean, do you think he'll be back? Would you like to see him back is also something that's tricky because we see this with champions where they don't say goodbye and then it can get to a point where
I think they find it so tough, don't they, to have an absolute goodbye. We saw that, with Andy Murray and that Australian Open debacle. And, I think, when tournament organisers a few years ago might have thought, this is a perfect opportunity for a big send-off and a big video to get like everyone in the court and the stadium, emotional about the moment. Actually now, I think it's the complete opposite. The big players, they don't want to give a definitive answer. I say Andy Murray's done that. Rafa Nadal's doing it. Serena Williams talks about evolving away from tennis. It just shows to me that they just find it really, really hard to say this is a full stop. This is the end. And when I was watching this match today, I was pleasantly surprised with the level that Rafael Nadal brought to the tennis court. And to me, I thought it more of it in terms of, I just think the French Open came too soon on this comeback. And I feel like he has plenty to be positive about going into the Olympics, where the format is going to favour him because it's going to be best of 3 sets. It's still going to be at Roland Garros, where he still has a phenomenal record, and he has good memories. He's got positive experiences at the Olympics in the past. So for me, as I say, I think there's opportunity for him to continue playing, providing he stays fit, providing he stays healthy. And the fact that he has gone out round one here makes me think there is that carrot there of, okay, let me come back and do this properly in 1 year's time.
Yeah, I think that's a very good summation. I think it probably has actually maybe ignited the fire in him to think, I can do better. If I didn't get Zverev in round one, maybe I could have had a run.
Definitely. Well, we shall see. But I mean, there were a few other big names on the court today, and we had Jannik Sinner returning to a tennis court. We didn't actually think maybe he was going to be at the French Open, but he was, and he came through very comfortably today against Christopher Eubanks, 6-3, 6-3, 6-4. I mean, Chris, it was so comfortable that I feel like the main talking point of this match was the confirmation afterwards that he's in a relationship with Anna Kalinskaya.
I mean, I have to admit, when I did share what we'll be talking about and the talking points with Joel, I didn't actually put the score of the match. I was just like, picture, screenshot saying, look, he was in her box and vice versa. And then in press in Italian, it was confirmed. So Kalinskaya, I was thinking, could it be Sinskaya.
Sinskaya.
Ooh, Sinskaya, quite like that.
Yeah.
I went for Kalin Sinner would be what I would go for.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I like that as well. Yeah,
we're trying here. But I mean, both of them came through, so clearly it's working on and off the court. Apparently, we won't hear much more about it from him because he doesn't like to talk much about his private life. But
will we see them in the mixed doubles?
I mean, based on successful pairings, I would say not in a serious capacity. We saw Katie Boulter and Alex de Minaur at Wimbledon, and that was fun. But I'm not sure that either of them probably thought they were going to take home the title that year.
I mean, just on the tennis, I mean, as I say, very comfortable win, straight sets. There was all talk around, his hip. It was a little bit, touch and go in terms of whether he was going to play Roland Garros, with, the Italian media even reporting that it was just going to be too soon. However, just very quickly in terms of the tennis, do you think, there's promise here? Because I think going into the clay season, we would have put him as almost like the standout favourite going into Roland Garros, given the form he has showed this season. Do you think he's now going to be more of like a dark horse and a little bit kind of an unknown, given that injury layoff he's had?
I think the pressure is off to a big extent because he's playing it very much match by match, not getting ahead of himself. I think a bigger focus actually will be playing this tournament, getting some ranking points and potentially leaving with the number one ranking, because it's all on Djokovic. And the further that Sinner goes in the tournament, the more that Djokovic needs to win this tournament. So I think it's probably not to be in a situation where you're defaulted the number one ranking, not because he hasn't deserved it. Obviously, he's won a slam and had some impeccable results across the last year, really, now, when we look back. And, if you were to be just handed it without playing the slam, I do think that it wouldn't feel particularly good. So I think every effort's been made to be fit and every effort's been made to have a good run. Do I think that at this point he'd be thinking about winning it? No, I think he's thinking about getting through the next match, testing the hip, seeing how he does, continuing the rehab. And if he's in a situation where he has a shot at it, then I think that becomes the focus.
Now, I don't want to be this person. However, for the next 2 minutes, I will be this person. Is there a danger that Kalinskaya and like a high-profile tennis relationship has a negative impact on Sinner's tennis? Because, as I say, Tsitsipas and Badosa, we spoke about that and we suggested maybe the reason it sort of was going to like breakup status was because it was affecting, that it was affecting both of their tennis. Do you think there's a worry there with Jannik Sinner in terms of this breaking basically over the French Open?
I think probably at this point it was hard to deny, given the appearances in each other's boxes.
The photos, yeah.
Yeah, you can't really get past it. And she was also in Turin last week, pictured near where he was getting his hip sort of work done, which, I mean, that's kind of, she happened to be there. I'm not sure
the jig is up.
Exactly. So I think it had to become public. I do think that he's not going to talk about it again. Do I think it will be a distraction? It's a bit different, obviously, before.
He's a lot quieter, isn't he? He already said in press that I don't want to really talk about this, but I will acknowledge it. Yes, this is a thing. Let's move on.
Yeah, exactly. But you will then be appearing in each other's boxes, which means that then your routine is different, because then he stayed to watch Kalinskaya. Kalinskaya watched him. When was the warm-up? Who knows? So it can be a bit logistical from a nightmare perspective, and maybe it will get the nerves going if your partner's not doing too well. But the thing that I would say is that Kalinskaya, I mean, she doesn't have a type because she last dated in the tennis world Nick Kyrgios.
Yeah, interesting.
So maybe those two, they are friends, Nick Kyrgios and Jannik Sinner, but maybe they're more similar off the court than we might think. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, if Nick Kyrgios does come back, and I think that's a big if at the moment, could be quite an interesting matchup.
It's
Kyrgios
like challenges is happening all over again.
I mean, moving on to the top seeds in the women's draw that we're playing on day 2. I mean, it was very straightforward for two of the favourites, Iga Swiatek and Coco Gauff. Gauff only needed 52 minutes, came through 6-1, 6-1 against a Russian qualifier. Iga Swiatek as well just breezed through Jean-Jean of France, 6-1, 6-2. Interesting talk about Swiatek, given her prowess at the moment on the clay court. Someone asked her in press about, is it too early to be called the Queen of Clay? And I feel like there is a natural succession going on here from Rafa, King of Clay, to Iga, Queen of Clay. I mean, do you think that label, do you think that title is fair enough at the moment, or do you think it's a bit too soon?
Maybe she's kind of not wanting to embrace it because of the fact that Rafa is obviously still very much the king of all clay. And if we're doing it from like an ungendered perspective, there's kind of only one real king or queen of clay right now, and it's Rafa. So maybe that's where it's coming from. But in terms of the results she puts together, I mean, clay is her surface. She is the best on it by far, and she's also the world number 1. So you could almost say that she's kind of the queen of many other surfaces at this point, except for grass. But ultimately, I think she keeps herself quite grounded with it. You know, I don't think she wants to start to look at any accolades until she really does have that trophy cabinet, you know, full to the brim, because she's got very big expectations on herself and very big ambitions. I don't think she wants to win one more French Open. I think she wants to win much more like Rafa numbers of 14. So yeah. I think she wants
the announcer to have that really long.
It's so long.
Announce in French. It's like a French maths lesson. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, I mean, in French, obviously. I'm not even going to try, but it is. So maybe there's a number in her head, and she hasn't let us know that yet. But I mean, she is maybe a princess of clay. Sounds like she's a bit. Not as mean on the court, you know, so maybe she has to be the queen of clay, but when Rafa is no longer the king. Okay, well, we'll keep it in our mind for now, and we'll see how she progresses through the tournament. I mean, just looking on the outside courts, there are a few upsets today. I mean, the big one, Maria Sakkari. Well, I say upset. I mean, she's not got a great record, has she? Typically at Grand Slams, Maria Sakkari out to Gracheva in 3 sets. There was a nice win for Bianca Andreescu against Sara Sorribes-Tormo.
Who can believe that?
In straight sets. I know. We thought that was an awful draw, but she came through in straight sets. That was a nice victory for her. Svitolina as well against Karolina Pliskova. I mean, Danielle Collins as well against Caroline Dollarhide, her US compatriot. Nice wins as well on the men's side for Felix Auger-Aliassime in straight sets. Ben Shelton had a very tasty match, I think, against Hugo Gaston. I saw images for that, just sort of filled like just no seats available, which was a nice match to, I imagine, watch. I mean, just on the outside courts, anything else kind of take your interest?
Well, from today, I think obviously I had one eye on the Brits, seeing how they were doing, and it hasn't been a happy hunting ground this French Open, has it? No. I believe Harriet Dart has now gone down to Noskova, which is a tough draw.
She played quite well, actually. I think. I mean, she was pushing to take that first set, but I mean, it's not been good, has it? I mean, Nori losing to Kotov as well in 5 sets after being seemingly in front most of it. Just continuing on from Jack Draper and Andy Murray-Este, not particularly great.
No, but also a favourite of Kim and mine when it comes to predictions. Kalinina also went out. She had to retire from that one in the final set potentially, which is a big shame because she has a good draw and she could have had a good match against Iga if she'd have made it to that stage potentially. But overall, I think, I wasn't looking that much in the grounds today. I've got to be honest. I was very much focused, as you say, on Phillipe Chatrier.
We were just kind of speaking about the disappointment of the Brits, and we're going to move back to day one on the Sunday, and we're going to be talking now about the big match from that day, or particularly from a British point of view. Stan Wawrinka against Andy Murray. Wawrinka coming through 6-4, 6-4, 6-2. These guys have met so many times over the course of their careers. Quite interesting, actually. Murray leads the head-to-head, but actually, if you look at Grand Slams and the clay surface, it's actually a lot more in favour of Wawrinka. And the result on day one just again sort of backed that up, because it was a straight sets victory for Wawrinka. What did you make of this? Were you surprised by the fact that it was straight sets, or was that to be expected, do you think?
If I had to predict, I would have said straight sets, which I know is tough to believe because I'm saying it, after the match has happened. But I think the lack of clay practice, it did mean it would be a pretty tough ask on Murray to suddenly find his clay feet. And also moving on the surface, especially when you do have some of those issues, it really is not the best place for Andy Murray to play tennis. So I think he was there because he wanted to play it probably for a final time potentially. But his relationship with the French Open, it has been tough at times. There's been heartbreak in finals, but there's also been some really great matches, and unfortunately in recent years we haven't really seen anything close to that, and this never really got started, if I'm honest. There was always the break relatively early, and then I have to be honest, I did switch over. I was watching Jarry versus Mute for the vibes. So Joel, you persevered. What are your key takeouts from an Andy Murray perspective?
Well, I thought it was interesting that he played with a Jannik's racket, and the talk in the build-up was that he was looking for more power, coming from the baseline, and that's why he's been experimenting with different rackets. But it didn't seem to really make a difference, because Wawrinka just came on the court and was just blasting phenomenal winners, from the back. And I know he hasn't been in the greatest of form of late. I think his last tour victory was 5 weeks ago. But yeah, he just came out and he just showed why he has been a French Open champion here, and why potentially Andy Murray has not been. He stood on the baseline, he was aggressive, he took the ball early, and from Murray's point of view, if there is one thing that has gone away from him because of injuries, I think, particularly with his hip, is the movement. And when you're playing someone like Wawrinka, who can move you across the court, can find those angles, just having that little extra step becomes a lot harder. And it just felt like it was happening too often for Murray's liking. He wasn't able to get on top of the rallies, and the more and more it went on, you're sort of just waiting for Wawrinka just to kind of find the line, hit power, and Murray just not have an answer to it.
I do wonder why Murray doesn't just sometimes drill the ball a bit like he used to. And I think I understand that probably, as you say, the racket change was behind that, but he really did used to hit the ball, I think, a little bit harder at times. And I think that the longer the rally, especially on clay...
Well, I think he's acknowledged that with this racket change, I think.
But then I think you really have to push it on court, because I think in a similar way to Nadal, he knew that if he was to get the result he wanted, he had to hit harder than he normally does and play more aggressively than he normally would like to. And I think that was a good tactic. It didn't quite pay off, but I do think there wasn't really a tactic in the Murray match. I think it was more testing the fitness, testing the racket potentially. It felt like gathering information and saying goodbye to a tournament, as opposed to... competing at some of the highest levels I've seen Murray compete at. Not that it wasn't enjoyable to watch, but I did just think maybe this isn't the time where Murray's going to be able to push on.
Yeah, they did have a really nice touching moment at the net. There was an sort of extended hug and handshake, so that was really nice to see. But I've got to agree with you. I think with Andy Murray, his relationship with the French Open is fascinating to me, because in his peak, you sort of associate him as a player who, can grind down, his opponent, incredible defense, scurrying across the court, making, impossible shots seem possible. And that style of play, say, given the wear and tear that he's put on his body through the years, it erodes, I think, that play and that ability. And sadly, I think we're obviously kind of coming towards the end of his career, and I think that shows. But I'm hoping, the grass courts, which are a little bit faster, a little bit more natural to him, that sort of mitigates that power situation, and he can kind of kick on. But hopefully I can see him at the Surbiton Trophy now, because he's out in round 1.
And yes, that would be great fun to see him there. And you can ask him about his racket there.
I know.
How's it playing on the grass?
I did enjoy, actually, just before we move on to talking about Carlos Alcaraz and Andrei Rublev, I did enjoy, there was a quote from Tommy Paul, who is also a Yonex ambassador, and he said something along the lines of he was like, I'm really surprised he's coming to he's switched to Yonex, and then he sort of got his Yonex ambassador brain switched on, and he was actually like, actually, no, wait, that's really exciting for Jannik. So I really enjoyed that.
If Casper was asked the same question, what he would say, because he's also a Jannik user. Some of these players, and this is something I always find fascinating, even if they change racket, they might be under a contract for a previous one. So they paint the racket so they look like different brands or different models of a brand. So is it conspiracy theory? Is it really a Jannik's racket? Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
And I guess the other thing as well, and Tim Henman raised it, and I thought it was a very good point on commentary, is the fact that he is changing his racket. Like, what does that mean in terms of his retirement, not retirement, when he's finishing tennis? Because if you're just about to change your racket, that doesn't scream to me that you're going to be hanging it up in 6 weeks' time at Wimbledon.
It really doesn't. In no way would you think that indicated that. And Stan said he wouldn't be surprised if Murray just kept on going to next year. So maybe we're doing all of this talk about these champions finishing off, and actually, they're just warming up for 2025.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, let's look at some of the other results from day one. I mean, another player who had injury worries around them, Carlos Alcaraz. He came through against lucky loser JJ Wolf, 6-1, 6-2, 6-1. I'm not going to lie, Chris, I don't feel like we learnt a lot from this match. It was very, very one-sided. It was very impressive, I guess, from Alcaraz, but I feel like there's going to be tougher tests to come. And even though I still have reservations on whether he's actually at the peak of his health at the moment, it was a good victory nonetheless. Yeah,
he got the job done. I think he made it look pretty easy out there. First match back. First match at a Grand Slam, it can always be tricky. You can always play a bit longer than you want to. At some point, you might want a test, but in the initial rounds, I think it was job done for Alcaraz. He said he's getting better and better, which is great. And the forearm is really improving, so that's really positive. And hopefully, as we talked about with Sinner, the more that the tournament progresses, the more fit he will be.
I mean, what is sort of sad, I think, about the Alcaraz win is that I was all excited for Alcaraz Draper round 2, because that would have been very fascinating from a British perspective, and just generally, I think, from tennis fans' perspective, just to see where Jack Draper is at, and also see a little bit more of where Carlos Alcaraz is at. However, Jack Draper lost to the qualifier Jesper de Jong from the Netherlands. So again, a little bit disappointing from the British point of view. I think that was like the first match from a British perspective in the singles, and it didn't start at a great point, and it just sort of went downhill from there, didn't it?
It set the tone. I really thought that Jack had done so well to get that tiebreak in the third, push through the fourth. I thought he was looking like he was the most likely to get ahead. I think he maybe even did get ahead at the start of that fifth set. And then he sort of just kind of let it go. And I think it's obviously very, very hard to win a set, a match coming back from 2 sets down. The mental energy you have to get yourself all the way over the line. And that's why it's so hard, because winning 2 sets in a row takes an awful lot of mental focus. But getting the final one really is particularly difficult. But I mean, his opponent was inspired. Watching that match, he played a really high level, and I think that there are moments of frustration for Jack where maybe he didn't get a break point that he might want to. But I mean, his opponent won 9 of 10 break points, so he was really taking his chances on that day. And when someone is taking their chances like that, I mean, there's not much you can do in some of those key moments. So. Yeah, exactly. What can you do? He's ranked 35 now. There's still a chance for a Wimbledon seeding if he can get some good results in. So I think that will be what his focus will be now.
Yeah, and Jesper de Jong, I believe, he went on a similar run at the Australian Open where he came through qualifying and reached round 2. So he's obviously a very decent tennis player, and it just shows, I think, with Jack Draper, he's got work to do. I believe he's added Wayne Ferreira into his camp, so lots of experience and expertise and knowledge that's being brought in there. So it just shows, I think, there's a work in progress there, and he's spoken about his serve, and they're making adjustments to it at the moment, and we might not necessarily have seen all the fruits of that labour in the clay swing, but hopefully it will be in tip-top shape for the grass swing. I mean, just a couple of other results to talk about. I mean, Andrei Rublev survived a scare. He came through in 4 sets against Taro Daniel. I mean, was that just finding a way to win? If you're Andrei Rublev, was that just finding a way to win to get through to round 2? It
is. It seemed like more of a mental arm wrestle than a physical one at times. So, I mean, he has had some tricky matches at slams. Again, you know, you just want to get the win in these early matches, and he did grind it out in over 3 hours. But, I mean, it's not the best sort of sign of form, but each match is different.
I mean, another player who came through in a bit of a topsy-turvy fashion, not the best start, not the best finish, to be honest, was Naomi Osaka, who on the women's side, you know, came through Lucia Bronzetti of Italy. I mean, Chris, this should have been done, I think, in straight sets? You know, she won the first set 6-1. Sorry. She was 4-love up in the third set. Not the second set, sorry. 4-love up in the third set, and I thought this is done and dusted. But yeah, she had to kind of gut it out 7-5 in the end in the third. I mean, I'm glad she got the victory, and I'm glad we've got this sort of marquee round 2 match of Swiatek versus Osaka. But you've got to think the performance and the way that she won here. Does it not bode well for this Swiatek matchup?
Yeah, it's definitely not a good sign because, I mean, Iga obviously is the best player in the world and the best player on clay. Not the queen of clay, but very good on clay. And Naomi has obviously found it pretty tricky in the past, especially in Paris. So she says she doesn't have low expectations of herself. It's going to be a good test for her to see where she's at, but I do think that's what it will be, a test. I think she really needs to go out there and hit the cover off the ball. You do not want to get into long rallies against her, but she needs a game plan and she needs that serve to be working to have a chance there.
I mean, it's just strange thinking about Naomi Osaka as an underdog, but hey, that is, I think, era, where we are this season. So that's where we are with this season, I think, with Osaka, is that she is going to have these matchups, and she's not going to be the favourite. She's not even going to be like in 50-50 situation. She is going to be like it'd be a surprise if she wins. And I certainly think against Swiatek, she will be doing well, I think, to win, even to nab a set, I think, or even push to a tiebreak potentially.
Yeah, I agree. And I think at this point of the season, I would not necessarily expect her to have the ranking of 134 in the world. I do think she would have pushed on more. So the fact that the round that she won in a slam is at the French is, again, a bit surprising, but maybe because the pressure's off. In some ways, it does make it a bit easier. But she did say that she almost kind of psyched herself out because she just thought she really wanted to get a win at a slam again. And again, you said underdog. Those are not Naomi Osaka words. It should be getting the title, not getting a first round win. And
words also I was not expecting to say after round 1 is, what happened to Chile? We were all excited about Chile, the nation of Chile in Rome at the Italian Open. Alejandro Tabio, Nicolas Jarry doing very, very well there. Well, at the French Open, they have both crashed out in round 1. Nicolas Jarry lost to Corentin Moutet in 4 sets, and Tabio lost to Zizou Bergs in 4 sets as well. Chris, what is it about going from events you do really, really well at, high-profile events, you know, a Masters 1000 event, to a French Open, seemingly having all the momentum in the world, and then having it just kind of stopped in your tracks in round 1?
I mean, there's only one possible explanation. It's that Joel picked them both to make the quarterfinals.
Yeah, it was not my finest hour, but I'm still very surprised. I mean, Moutet is very, very up and down. I know him and Jarry had a bit of beef, didn't they, when they played each other in the Golden Swing, and it was always going to be tasty.
Yes, indeed.
Moutet was like almost inciting the crowd to just basically boo Jarry like at every moment.
It was genuinely wild to watch. I really, really enjoyed watching that because it was almost like a Davis Cup match. And there were very few French people, but there were a lot of them making a lot of noise. So maybe
he felt that was the only way he was going to be able to beat Jarry.
Well, he definitely needs to feed off the crowd. I don't think he gets most inspired when he's playing on the Challenger Tour, that's for sure. But for Jarry, I mean, it really is a fall from grace, this result. Watching him completely combust on court, that forehand goes from absolutely deadly to completely useless. I mean, I've never seen someone miss more by that much. I mean, it honestly was a really, really poor performance. And I mean, you hope that there's nothing else going on there. But I mean, being bageled as such a big server and then losing that set 6-love when then you're not even facing a big server, it's Cornet Mute. Like, you're going to have chances on the return, and he really didn't take any of them. So, I mean, ultimately, there's no real excuse beyond the circumstances of maybe the crowd really did psych him out, or maybe it was the ball boy that took him out that caused the problems.
Yes,
because
I saw
I have
that.
thoughts, Joel. I have thoughts.
Oh, you think that was what? You think that was deliberate?
No conspiracies here.
Oh,
but
okay.
I do not believe that tiny little French ball boy should have been able to take out Nicolas Jarry so easily. I mean, he just flopped to the court. Yeah. And my theory is he diving like a Chilean football player?
Yeah.
Or is it whether the centre of mass is different when you're 2 meters tall, potentially? So maybe that caused the problem.
It just felt like one of those days, didn't it, when nothing was going right for you. His forehand wasn't going right, and even just to go to the side of the court to get his towel or water bottle or whatever it was, that wasn't going as right as well, because he got full-on clatter from a French ball boy. I mean,
a rugby tackle.
There you go. I mean, just one incident we need to talk about from the outside courts that was pretty big news, I think, on social media in terms of the decision not being correct. It was the French player Atmani versus Sebastian Offner of Austria. Now, Offner came through this in 5 sets, but there was an incident during the match where Atmani, I think, was 2-1 up. He basically capitulated and hit a tennis ball which hit a spectator in the crowd. Now, the supervisor and the umpire went over to speak to the spectator. Offner was calling for a straight DQ, straight default for the French player. However, he was let off with a warning. Now, Chris, both me and you have seen this incident played out on social media. We've seen the video of it. Do you think they got to the right call there?
I think it's an absolute shambolic decision. I really do think it was awful that was the decision. We've seen people disqualified just last year for much less crimes with Miyu Kato, and when there is such a focus on things like that, I do think that the nature of that decision was impacted by the fact that we're playing in France and it was a French player. In that sense, I think that the court of public opinion was on show. It felt like home advantage,
home benefit of the doubt.
It really did. And I think people get disqualified for much less, and they have done at this exact tournament. So for me, no question, there was a lot more malice behind that than what we saw last year with Miyu Kato. And I do think that if you're going to disqualify a female for that behaviour, then you should definitely be disqualifying a male who does the same, because otherwise it begs into question, why is it that this happened the other way around?
Yeah, I agree. And I'm not going to lie, I'm sort of glad actually Offner was able to come through and win that in 5 sets.
I was so pleased. Otherwise the headline would be awful.
It was bizarre, and I agree. He should have been disqualified, and was not great to see. I just feel like there's so much inconsistency, and there was some benefit of the doubt given there, and there should just not be given any sort of benefit of doubt. There should not be any sort of subjectivity, I think, when it comes to these things, regardless of who it is, what the match is, what court it's on, whatever it is. I think it needs to be more of an objective decision, and they just weren't brave enough to make that, I think, in that moment. So that to me was a bit upsetting. It was nice to see, actually, very quickly, Kei Nishikori come through against Gabriel Diallo in 5 sets. I mean, we haven't seen him on a court or even at Grand Slam in a long, long time. So similar to Andreescu, great victory there. Before we finish this episode, round 1, we've seen some nice fashion items on show. some we agree with, some we
Yes.
don't agree with. I mean, what's your take on the outfits you've seen so far across the men's and women's draws?
That is a fabulous question. I did quite like the Wilson green that's being used. I think it's very on swatch is how I would describe it. But the debate that has been raging on in the Tennis Weekly WhatsApp channel is about Kei Nishikori.
Yes.
You love it, right?
I love it. The whole sort of blending of different greens in this kind of swirly pattern. I love it.
Looks like an acid trip, Joel. It really does. I mean, it's a lot to handle.
I mean, Kim said it was like very sci-fi alien invasion vibes kind of going on, but
it doesn't
yeah,
give
I
you
just
French
like the sort
chic,
of blend.
does it? Okay, well, I can actually see you in that, you know, with the headband, a pop of colour. You're not
We
afraid
did agree.
to wear a bold...
We did agree, though. We did agree, though, on Alya Tomljanovic, the gingham outfit. I forget who her sponsor is. Is it Penguin?
Penguin.
Yes.
Yes,
That was
Penguin.
a bit too much, we think. I mean, we're fashion experts, aren't we? But that was... I mean, we're not fashion experts, but that was a little bit too much.
It was, well, I do consider myself an expert, but not an expert necessarily in all things fashion. But what we saw, I think there hasn't been much good out there so far. So I'm not just shaming those two. I do think there's been many not good ones. Like the Adidas Bumblebees are all over this year.
Oh, I'm not going to lie. I mean, listeners, let us know. But I think for me, the Sissipas black, yellow, black Bumblebee top, that's the best way, as you said, Chris. I think I can describe it. To me, that's the worst outfit going at the French Open.
We need to call the exterminator. Where were the bees? Were they Indian Wells? Come and get them.
I don't know, but I don't understand how that top gets made. But okay, fine. Right. Maybe that should be the wooden spoon gift for whoever loses.
Tennis Weekly will make
so
you
shocking.
dress as a bumblebee.
I don't know, but we need to give our collector set player picks before we finish this episode. We announced our collector set players in our preview, and they were Novak Djokovic, Rafael Nadal, Felix Auger-Aliassime, Danielle Collins, Coco Gauff, and Madison Keys. Firstly, thank you to everyone who has submitted their predictions for the 6 player picks. We're going to see who, by the end of the French Open, who is going to win a coveted Tennis Weekly mug. I mean, the big question is, who is it going to be between me, Kim, and Chris in terms of who's going to get the highest collector set score? Chris, what are your predictions with those players for collector set?
Right, well, I went quarterfinal for Novak Djokovic. I picked up a point, unfortunately, with Rafael Nadal going out in round 1. Felix Auger-Aliassime I found very tough to predict. I went for round 3 because I thought, I'm sure he's going to bottle it at some point.
Okay.
Danielle Collins stuck to my guns on a final. Coco, I think, will live up to her ranking, taking a semi-final. And then Madison Keys, I'm kind of regretting this. I went for round 4, but I actually think Kim might be right. She might make the final. So
yeah,
it's going to be wide open.
That result against Collins in
emphatic Strasbourg.
Yeah, Strasbourg. Yeah. So I'm almost regretting also my decision making in relation to Collins and Keys. But however, I have gone sort of similar, sort of not similar, and I've also picked up a point so far. I've got Djokovic making round 4. Nadal, I've also put round 1. Felix Auger-Aliassime, I think he's going to make quarterfinals. His best result ever here is round 4, so I'm hoping he goes one step further. And then I've got Danielle Collins making it to the quarterfinals, where I think she's scheduled to face Iga Swiatek. I've got Coco Gauff making the semi-finals. And then similar to you, I've got Madison Keys in round 4, but I have instant regret over that decision, I think.
Yes. Should I reveal Kim's just because I'm thinking we should get it out there now? Or should we do it live in Paris?
Maybe get her reaction in Paris, but let's hear them now. Let's get them all out of the way.
Let's do it. So she had Novak winning, which I think not many people have gone for. She did.
Okay. This is why you wanted to bring it up.
Yes, exactly. I think maybe there's a chance that we might beat her finally this time. But she went Rafa round 1 and Novak winning. I mean, that's not very Kim.
I mean, if a Rafa fan like Kim is giving Nadal round 1, yeah.
I mean, she likes to not tempt fate on these things, but Felix round 4, Coco round 4, Danielle, quarterfinals, and Madison, a final. So Novak and Madison are her players to watch out of the.
Wow, Madison Keys in the final. Interesting. Well, we shall see. I mean,
quite
there's a lot.
like the sound of that, though.
It's good. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, a lot can happen over the next couple of weeks, and we will stay tuned. I mean, you're going to be on Suzanne Longlong very soon.
Yes, we will be on Thursday. Kim and I will both be on Susan Longlong, and I'm very concerned about a Wednesday on Simone Mathieu because the weather in Paris looks truly awful. So at least I'll have Kim and Alina for company.
Well, I mean, it's going to be very exciting. It looks like you might get a very packed draw on Suzanne Longland, and thank God they put another roof at Roland Garros this year because, the weather gods so far have not been particularly kind. However, we're going to leave our round one catch up there. Listeners, I hope you've enjoyed our latest episode of the Tennis Weekly podcast. Remember to subscribe to us to stay up to date on all the action to come over the next couple of weeks from Roland Garros. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all major podcasting platforms out there. And if you like what you're hearing, then make sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
Do not miss all of our exciting content that we'll be shooting live from Paris. It'll be on all of our social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and X, and the handle for all of those is Tennis Weekly Pod. You can also purchase Tennis Weekly merchandise that you can rock at the French Open and Wimbledon, etsy.com/shop/tennisweeklypodcast. You can email us at tennisweeklypod@gmail.com or do check out our website, tennisweekly.co.uk. And also, do let us know if you're also in Paris. Come and say hello. We'd love to see you there. So you can tell us just how bad our predictions are in person.
Yeah, look out for the tote bags and the hats. I'm hoping that they will make an appearance. But yeah, look out for the tote bags and hats in Paris. Our round two catch up will be with you on Thursday.
A live catch up.
HQ. A live catch up, exactly, live from the grounds of Roland Garros. Very, very exciting. So I hope you can join us for that. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from Chris.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. We'll see you again soon.